How a female nurse fulfilled a patient's last wish. Story time. The story begins with a quiet hospital ward where patients came and went every day, but one face always remained constant: the nurse who greeted everyone with the same warmth and patience no matter how long her shift had been. Her name was Aisha, a woman in her early 30s, known among her colleagues not only for her medical skills but also for her extraordinary compassion. From the very first moment she stepped into nursing, Aisha believed it was more than just a career. She saw it as a calling, something that connected her deeply with the lives of others. While many around her would complain about the endless hours, the emotional strain, and the routine tasks, Aisha always found meaning in every small detail, whether it was holding a patient's hand during a painful procedure, offering encouraging words, or simply sitting in silence when someone needed company. Her day usually began before sunrise. She would carefully prepare her uniform, pin her name badge, and take a quiet moment to remind herself of her purpose: every patient I meet today deserves kindness. This thought guided her actions and gave her strength, even when the workload became overwhelming. In the hospital where she worked, Aisha was admired by both doctors and fellow nurses. They knew that whenever a patient was restless, worried, or feeling neglected, she was the one who could calm them down. Her calm voice and gentle smile had a way of easing even the most distressed souls. Patients often said that just by speaking to her, they felt lighter, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their hearts. But behind her dedication was a story of her own. Aisha had lost her father at a young age to illness. She remembered sitting by his hospital bed, watching the nurses move in and out. Some of them showed kindness, but others treated their work as routine, rushing from one patient to another without really seeing the human being in front of them. That memory never left her. As she grew older, she promised herself that if she ever worked in healthcare, she would never let a patient feel invisible. She wanted to be the kind of nurse who cared not only for the body but also for the heart. Her colleagues sometimes teased her, saying, "Aisha, you spend too much time with your patients. You'll tire yourself out." But she only smiled in response. For her, those extra minutes spent listening to a story, or wiping away a tear, were not wasted time. They were moments that made her work meaningful. She understood that patients in hospitals were not just fighting diseases, they were also fighting loneliness, fear, and uncertainty. One particular evening, as she walked down the corridor, she noticed an elderly woman struggling to eat her dinner. Instead of rushing past, Aisha pulled up a chair and patiently fed her, speaking gently to distract her from the pain. Another time, she stayed late after her shift because a young boy was terrified of sleeping alone in the ward. She told him stories until his eyelids grew heavy and his breathing slowed into peaceful sleep. These were small acts, but they painted the picture of who she truly was: a nurse who treated every patient as if they were her own family. It wasn't always easy. The hospital was often overcrowded, resources were limited, and emergencies came without warning. There were nights when she barely had a chance to sit, let alone rest. There were days when she lost patients she had grown attached to, and each loss cut her deeply. Yet, even in those moments of sorrow, she found strength in reminding herself that she had done everything she could to bring comfort during their final days. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed. Families often requested Aisha by name when their loved ones were admitted. Some would leave thank you notes, saying she had made an unbearable time more bearable. One family even sent her a letter months later, saying, "We will never forget the way you cared for our father. You were like an angel to him." For Aisha, those words were more valuable than any award or recognition. Despite her gentle nature, she also had a strong sense of responsibility. She trained new nurses patiently, teaching them not just the technical skills of medicine but also the importance of empathy. She would tell them, "Patients will forget the medicine you gave them, but they will never forget how you made them feel." Her trainees respected her deeply, often seeking her advice when they felt overwhelmed. At home, Aisha led a simple life. She lived with her mother and younger sister, who often worried about how much energy she spent at work. "You carry everyone's pain on your shoulders," her mother would say. Aisha would only smile and reply, "If I can ease their pain, even for a little while, then my work is worth it." She believed that compassion was not something that drained her, rather, it gave her purpose. One winter evening, as she finished her rounds, she stood by a patient's bed who had been too weak to speak all day. She gently adjusted his blanket and whispered, "You're not alone. We are here with you." Though his eyes remained closed, a small tear rolled down his cheek. That single moment reminded Aisha why she chose this path. It was not about medicine alone, but about touching lives in ways words could never fully describe. Every patient, every interaction, every moment in the ward shaped her journey as a nurse. She was not perfect, nor did she claim to be, but she always tried to be present, to listen, and to care. And in a world where hospitals often felt cold and impersonal, her presence became a light that warmed the hearts of those around her. Little did Aisha know, her compassion and dedication would soon lead her to an experience unlike any she had faced before. An encounter with a patient whose final wish would test not only her strength but also her ability to go beyond the role of a nurse. What she didn't realize was that her promise to never let a patient feel invisible would be the very key to fulfilling a wish that would remain with her forever. The hospital where Aisha worked was always full of stories of recovery, stories of struggle, and sometimes stories that ended in silence. Every patient carried a different life behind those hospital walls, and every day, Aisha reminded herself that each one deserved care and dignity. One morning, as she walked through the ward with her clipboard, she noticed a new patient being wheeled in. He was an elderly man with thin hair, tired eyes, and a face that showed years of both joy and hardship. His name was Mr. Rahim. Unlike other patients who usually spoke to nurses about their pain or worries, Mr. Rahim stayed quiet. He looked out of the window as if the world outside held something he longed for but couldn't reach anymore. Aisha greeted him warmly. "Good morning, Mr. Rahim. I'm Nurse Aisha. I'll be looking after you." He nodded slowly but said very little. She could sense he was not just dealing with physical illness but also with emotions too heavy for words. She adjusted his blanket, checked his pulse, and gently encouraged him to rest. Over the next few days, she kept noticing the same silence in him. He ate little, spoke even less, and spent long hours staring at the same spot on the wall or through the window. Most nurses might have assumed he was simply tired or uninterested, but Aisha's instincts told her otherwise. She believed that silence was often a language of its own, and it needed listening just as much as spoken words. So instead of forcing conversations, she simply stayed near him whenever she had a chance, sometimes refilling his water, sometimes adjusting his pillow, and sometimes just sitting quietly in his room while updating her notes. Days turned into a week, and slowly a small change began to show. One evening, as she handed him his medicine, he looked at her and asked softly, "How long have you been working here?" It was the first time he had initiated a conversation. Aisha smiled gently and replied, "Almost 9 years now. I've seen many faces come and go, but I remember most of them." Mr. Rahim gave a faint smile. "That's a long time. You must have many stories." His words opened the first door. From then on, their interactions began to grow, little by little. He started asking her about the hospital, about her daily routine, and even about her favorite childhood memory. In return, he began sharing pieces of his own life. Aisha learned that Mr. Rahim had once been a schoolteacher. He loved teaching children and spent over 30 years shaping young minds. He spoke fondly of his students, some of whom had grown into successful adults who still remembered him with respect. But when he spoke about his personal life, a shadow passed over his face. His wife had passed away years ago, and his children lived far away, busy with their own families. He rarely received visitors. That loneliness weighed heavier on him than his illness. Aisha listened patiently to everything he shared. She didn't interrupt, nor did she try to give empty reassurances. She simply let him speak, because she knew sometimes sharing a story could heal more than medicine. One afternoon, during her rounds, she found him holding a small photograph in his trembling hands. It was an old picture of him with his wife and children, taken many years ago in a park. His eyes filled with tears as he looked at it. Seeing his pain, Aisha quietly pulled a chair beside him and sat down. "She was my strength," he whispered, pointing at his wife in the picture. "And now, she's gone. My children, they are far away. I don't blame them, but it feels like I'm already forgotten." Aisha placed her hand gently on his. "You are not forgotten, Mr. Rahim. You are here, and your life still matters. You have touched so many lives as a teacher. That will never fade." Her words brought a fragile smile to his lips. "You remind me of my daughter," he said softly. "She used to sit with me just like this. Maybe that's why I feel like talking to you." From that day, their bond grew stronger. Whenever Aisha had a break, she would spend a few minutes with him. Sometimes they talked about his childhood memories, how he used to climb mango trees with his friends, or how he learned to ride a bicycle on the dusty streets of his village. Other times, he told her about his teaching days, the students who challenged him, the ones who made him proud, and the little moments that made his career fulfilling. Aisha never felt these conversations were a waste of time. In fact, they reminded her why she loved her job. She realized that medicine could heal the body, but kindness and listening could heal the heart. But beneath his stories, she sensed something else. There was a heaviness in his voice whenever he spoke about the present. He seemed to be holding on to something unspoken, something he wanted to share but couldn't yet find the courage to. Aisha decided not to push him. She believed that when he was ready, he would tell her. One evening, as the ward grew quiet and most patients had fallen asleep, Aisha walked past Mr. Rahim's room and noticed he was still awake. His eyes were fixed on the ceiling, and his face looked troubled. She stepped inside softly and asked, "Can't sleep?" He sighed deeply. "It's not the illness that keeps me awake. It's something else." She pulled up a chair and sat beside him. "Would you like to talk about it?" For a moment, he stayed silent, as if weighing whether to open his heart. Then he whispered, "I don't have much time left. The doctors haven't said it, but I can feel it. And before I go, there's one thing I wish for, one thing that would make me leave this world in peace." Aisha listened intently, her heart heavy but steady. She didn't ask what the wish was just yet. Instead, she said softly, "Sometimes sharing a wish makes it easier to hold. Whenever you're ready, I'm here to listen." Mr. Rahim looked at her, his tired eyes glistening. "You're different from the others. You see me, not just my illness. That's why maybe I can tell you." And with those words, he hinted at the beginning of a request that would soon change everything. Aisha didn't know yet what he would ask, but she already felt a quiet determination rising inside her. Whatever it was, she wanted to help him find peace. The days passed slowly inside the hospital ward. For most patients, time was measured by medicine schedules, meal trays, and the quiet ticking of the wall clock. But for Mr. Rahim, each day felt like borrowed time. His health was fragile, his strength slipping, yet his heart held on to something unfinished. Aisha noticed this every time she looked into his eyes. They carried a question, a longing, something deeper than pain. One morning, after finishing her rounds, Aisha returned to his room. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on his face. He was awake, staring at the photograph of his family again. His hands trembled slightly as he held it, but this time his expression wasn't just sad, it was thoughtful, as if he had finally decided to speak. "Aisha," he said softly, "do you believe a person can leave this world in peace if their last wish is fulfilled?" She paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. I believe so. Sometimes a final wish gives meaning to all the years behind us. It can bring comfort in ways nothing else can. He looked at her intently, then nodded. There's something I have carried in my heart for a long time. It's not about me, it's about those I love. Aisha leaned closer, listening with full attention. She knew these words were heavy, and she wanted him to feel safe in sharing them. My last wish, he whispered, is to see my children together one more time. Not through a phone call, not in photographs, but here, in front of me. I want to look into their faces, hold their hands, and feel that our family is whole again. That's all I want before I go. The room fell silent after his words. Aisha felt her heart tighten. She understood how much this meant to him, but she also knew it would not be simple. His children lived far away, caught up in their busy lives. She had seen many families in similar situations. Sometimes they came, sometimes they didn't. But she also knew she couldn't let doubt show on her face. She placed her hand gently over his. That is a beautiful wish, Mr. Rahim. And I promise you, I will do everything I can to make it happen. Tears welled in his eyes. I don't want to trouble anyone. They have their own lives, their jobs, their responsibilities. But a father's heart, it longs for his children until the very end. Aisha nodded. You are not troubling anyone. Love is never a burden. Let me try. Sometimes, all it takes is a little effort to remind people what truly matters. From that moment, the wish became a mission in her heart. She knew the doctors focused on treating his body, but she felt her duty was to heal his soul. Fulfilling this wish was more than just kindness, it was a responsibility she took upon herself with quiet determination. The next day, after completing her duties, she gently asked Mr. Rahim for his children's contacts. With trembling hands, he gave her their phone numbers, written in an old diary he kept in his drawer. They don't always answer right away, he warned. But maybe, if you explain, they will come. That evening, when her shift ended, Aisha sat in the staff lounge with the diary in her hands. She looked at the numbers and felt a sense of nervousness. She wasn't family, she wasn't a relative, just a nurse. But she reminded herself that sometimes, a stranger's voice carried truth that family needed to hear. She dialed the first number, belonging to his eldest son. After a few rings, a tired voice answered. Hello. Good evening, Aisha began politely. I'm Nurse Aisha from the city hospital. I'm caring for your father, Mr. Rahim. The son's tone grew alert. How is he? Is everything okay? He is stable for now, Aisha replied. But I wanted to share something important. He has one last wish, to see you and your siblings together. It means the world to him. I think it would bring him peace. There was silence on the other end. Finally, the son sighed. I've been meaning to visit, but work has kept me busy. It's hard to leave everything and come. Aisha's voice softened. I understand. But some moments don't come twice in life. If you can, please consider it not for me, but for him. He waits for you every day with hope in his eyes. The son didn't promise right away, but his voice carried hesitation mixed with emotion. I'll try, he said quietly, before ending the call. Aisha didn't give up. She called the second number, his daughter. When she explained the same, the daughter broke down in tears. I didn't know he felt this way. I thought he was being cared for and didn't want to trouble us. I'll come as soon as I can. Encouraged by her response, Aisha contacted the youngest child. His voice was distant at first, but after listening carefully, he agreed. If it's his wish, then I should be there. That night, as Aisha left the hospital, her heart felt lighter. She hadn't secured definite promises, but she had planted the seed. Sometimes, she believed, Love just needed a small reminder to grow again. The following days passed with quiet anticipation. Mr. Rahim grew weaker physically, but when Aisha sat beside him, she noticed a faint sparkle of hope in his eyes. He didn't ask for updates every hour, but the way he looked at her told her he trusted her. He believed she was trying. One evening, while adjusting his blanket, he whispered, "Do you think they'll come?" Aisha smiled gently. "Yes, Mr. Rahim. I believe they will. Love may be late, but it never forgets the way home." Her words brought peace to him, and he closed his eyes with a calm expression. For Aisha, this was not just about fulfilling a patient's last wish, it was a reminder of why she had chosen nursing in the first place. It was about restoring dignity, bringing comfort, and creating a bridge between hearts before time ran out. And deep inside, she felt a quiet determination. No matter how hard it was, she would do everything possible to help Mr. Rahim's family reunite. She didn't know when or how it would happen, but she believed in the power of compassion, in the strength of family bonds, and in the possibility of miracles in the most unexpected moments. Little did she realize that the journey of fulfilling this wish would test not only her patience but also her courage, her persistence, and her faith in humanity. The days ahead would bring challenges but also moments that would touch her heart forever. The hospital ward was quiet as usual, filled with the beeping of machines and the soft footsteps of nurses. But for Aisha, the silence felt heavier. Each passing day reminded her that Mr. Rahim's time was running short. She had spoken to his children, and though they had promised to try, there was still uncertainty. She knew the window to fulfill his wish was closing. That evening, as she sat by his bedside, she noticed how weak he had become. His breaths were slower, his hands colder, yet his eyes still searched the door every time someone entered, as if hoping to see familiar faces. The sight tugged at Aisha's heart. She couldn't bear to see his hope fade. She decided to take action more directly. After finishing her shift, she reached out again to his children. This time, her words carried urgency. She explained gently but firmly that their father's condition was delicate, and waiting too long might mean missing the chance forever. To his eldest son she said, "I understand your work is important, but this is your father's last request. If you come now, you will carry peace in your heart forever. If you delay, you may live with regret." Her sincerity broke through his hesitation. After a pause, he finally said, "All right. I'll arrange things and come tomorrow." When she spoke with his daughter, the response was filled with emotion. "I'm booking my ticket tonight," she whispered, her voice trembling with guilt and love. The youngest son, too, agreed after listening quietly. "Tell my father I'm coming soon. Please keep him strong until then." Relief washed over Aisha. She knew nothing was guaranteed until they actually arrived, but at least now there was hope that his last wish could truly come alive. The next morning, she visited Mr. Rahim as usual. He looked pale, yet when she greeted him with her gentle smile, he whispered, "Did you speak to them?" She nodded softly. "Yes. They are trying to come. Very soon, you may see them." A faint tear rolled down his cheek. "Thank you, Aisha. Even if it doesn't happen, just knowing someone cared enough to try means everything to me." Her heart ached at his words. She placed her hand on his and said firmly, "It will happen. Believe in it." Over the next 2 days, the atmosphere around Mr. Rahim began to shift. Nurses noticed that he seemed calmer, as though holding on to a quiet anticipation. Aisha stayed close whenever possible, talking to him, encouraging him, and keeping his spirits alive. Finally, the moment arrived. On a cloudy afternoon, as Aisha prepared his medicine, she heard footsteps in the hallway followed by soft voices. She stepped out and saw a small group walking toward the ward, 2 men and a woman, their eyes heavy with emotion. Her heart raced. They were his children. She greeted them warmly. "You made it?" He has been waiting for this moment. The eldest son's eyes filled with tears. How is he? He is weak, but he has been holding on for you, Aisha said gently. Please, go in. The three entered the room quietly. Mr. Rahim was lying with his eyes half closed, but when he heard familiar footsteps, he turned his head slowly. The moment his gaze met theirs, his tired face lit up with a glow no medicine could ever create. My children, he whispered, his voice trembling. They rushed to his side. His daughter held his hand tightly, while his son stood close, their eyes wet with emotion. For a long time, words seemed unnecessary. It was the silence of love, the silence of a reunion that went beyond speech. Aisha stood at the doorway, watching with a heart full of peace. She saw the way his frail hands rested in theirs, how his eyes softened with relief. For the first time in weeks, Mr. Rahim didn't look lonely, he looked complete. His daughter bent close and whispered, Baba, we are here. We're not going anywhere. His lips curved into a faint smile. I was afraid I would leave without seeing you again. But God is kind. He brought you back to me. They spent hours together, sharing memories, laughter, and even tears. His children apologized for being distant, for letting life pull them away. He, in turn, forgave them with the unconditional love of a parent. What matters is this moment, he told them. You are here now. That is enough. Aisha quietly arranged chairs so they could sit comfortably, and she slipped out to give them privacy. But she checked in often, bringing tea, water, and extra blankets. She wanted this reunion to be as warm and peaceful as possible. Later that evening, when she returned to the room, she saw Mr. Rahim resting with a peaceful expression, his children still beside him. He looked at Aisha and whispered, Thank you. You gave me the greatest gift of my life. Aisha shook her head gently. It wasn't me, Mr. Rahim. It was love that brought them here. I only helped open the door. The next few days became precious. His children stayed close, taking turns holding his hand, reading to him, or simply sitting by his side. The hospital room, once filled with silence and loneliness, now carried warmth and laughter. Even the other patients and nurses noticed the change. For Aisha, watching this transformation was deeply moving. She realized that sometimes healing didn't come from medicines or machines, it came from love, from fulfilling a heart's deepest desire. One evening, as she prepared to leave for home, she passed by his room and saw him surrounded by his children, smiling weakly but happily. She paused for a moment and whispered to herself, This is why I became a nurse. For moments like these. The reunion was not only a gift for Mr. Rahim but also for his children. They rediscovered the bond they had taken for granted. They realized how important it was to show love before it was too late. Aisha could see it in their eyes, gratitude, relief, and a silent promise to never forget this lesson again. For Mr. Rahim, his last wish had been fulfilled. He had seen his children together, felt their love, and held their hands once more. His heart, once heavy with longing, now rested in peace. And for Aisha, this experience became one of the most meaningful chapters of her life. She had gone beyond her duty as a nurse, she had become a bridge between a father and his children, giving him dignity in his final days. She knew that someday, when she looked back on her career, she would remember this story not as a tale of sorrow, but as a reminder that compassion could change lives, even in the smallest of ways. The days after the reunion felt different inside the hospital. Mr. Rahim's room, once filled with silence and longing, now carried the warmth of voices, laughter, and gentle conversations. His children stayed by his side, taking turns to care for him. They read old stories together, remembered family meals, and even laughed at childhood memories that had long been tucked away in the corners of their hearts. Aisha often stood at the doorway, watching quietly. She didn't want to intrude, yet seeing the bond between father and children gave her a deep sense of peace. It reminded her that love, though sometimes delayed, always found its way back. For Mr. Rahim, every day spent with his children felt like a blessing. His health continued to weaken, but his heart grew lighter. One evening, he told Aisha, "I feel like a burden has been lifted. I can close my eyes without fear now." Aisha's eyes softened. "You are not a burden, Mr. Rahim. You are a father who gave his best to his family. And now, you have received their love in return." He smiled faintly. "If I had only one more lesson to teach my children, it would be this: never let distance steal your love. Life is too short." His words stayed with her. As the days passed, his children grew close to Aisha as well. They often thanked her for her efforts. His daughter told her, "If not for you, we might have never realized how much he needed us. You gave us back time we can never buy." Aisha simply replied with humility, "It was his love that brought you here. I only reminded you of it." Eventually, the inevitable came. On a peaceful morning, with his children holding his hands, Mr. Rahim took his final breath. His passing was gentle, without fear, surrounded by the love he had longed for. His children wept quietly, but even through their tears, they knew he had left with peace in his heart. Aisha, though deeply moved, stayed strong. She had witnessed loss many times before, but this one felt different. It wasn't just about saying goodbye to a patient, it was about completing a journey, fulfilling a wish, and witnessing the power of compassion. The hospital staff also noticed. They had seen patients leave this world in many ways, some alone, some surrounded by machines, some in silence. But Mr. Rahim's passing was filled with dignity and love. Many of them whispered to Aisha, "You did something beautiful here." After his children arranged the funeral and said their goodbyes, they returned once more to meet Aisha. His eldest son, with tears in his eyes, told her, "You are not just a nurse. You are family to us now. We will never forget what you did for our father." His daughter added softly, "We promise to live with the lesson he left us. We will stay connected, no matter where life takes us." Their gratitude touched Aisha deeply. She realized that her actions had not only comforted a dying man but also reconnected a family that might have drifted apart forever. In the weeks that followed, Aisha often thought about Mr. Rahim. She replayed the moments in her mind: the silence of his early days, the heaviness in his voice when he shared his wish, the sparkle in his eyes when he saw his children again, and the peaceful smile on his face before his final breath. Each memory became a reminder of the purpose behind her profession. She shared the story with her fellow nurses, not to praise herself but to inspire them. "We are not just here to give medicine or record numbers," she told them gently. "We are here to give comfort, to listen, to care for the soul as much as the body. Sometimes, fulfilling one wish is worth more than all the treatments we provide." Her colleagues listened, and many of them began to see their work differently. They started taking a little more time with patients, offering small gestures of kindness, and remembering that behind every illness was a person with dreams, fears, and stories. Aisha's story spread quietly through the hospital. Some doctors mentioned it in meetings, reminding staff of the importance of compassion. Families of other patients also heard about it, and they were encouraged to visit their loved ones more often, realizing that presence mattered more than anything else. For Aisha, the experience became a guiding light in her life. Whenever she felt tired from long shifts, or when she faced difficult days, she remembered Mr. Rahim. She remembered the peace on his face when his wish was fulfilled, and it gave her strength to keep going. One evening, while walking home from the hospital, she looked at the sunset and thought, "This is what life is about, not the number of years we live, but the love we share in those years." Her mother noticed the change in her too. "You seem quieter these days," her mother said. Aisha smiled. "Not quieter, just more thoughtful. I learned something recently that even a small act of kindness can change the way someone leaves this world. And sometimes, it can change the way others continue living. Her mother nodded with pride. Your father would have been proud of you. You gave dignity to someone in their last days. That is no small thing. The memory of Mr. Rahim continued to guide her, not just in her work but in her own life. She began to treasure time with her family more, to make space for conversations, and to remind her loved ones how important they were to her. She no longer postponed expressions of love, because she had seen how much it meant for someone to receive it before it was too late. Years later, when new nurses joined the hospital, Aisha would tell them, never underestimate the power of listening. Sometimes, a patient doesn't need medicine as much as they need a hand to hold, a word of comfort, or a promise that they are not alone. Her words inspired many. Though Mr. Rahim's life came to an end, his story lived on in his children, who stayed connected to one another, and in Aisha, who carried his memory as a reminder of why she served as a nurse. His last wish had not only given him peace but had also created ripples of compassion that touched many lives. And so, in the quiet halls of the hospital, where patients continued to come and go, Aisha kept working with the same gentle smile, the same patient heart. Each time she entered a room, she carried with her the lesson of Mr. Rahim that every life deserves dignity, every voice deserves to be heard, and every final moment deserves to be filled with love.